Hello, friend of God, family, and friends connecting with us from across the nations. I am so delighted to welcome you to our Friend of God Go Global Missions Conference 2020. The advancement in technology, and along with the dedication and commitment of this incredible team, has made it possible for us to overcome so many barriers and bring this conference right into your home or wherever you are tuning in from.
Children of Vriend van God Suid-Afrika.
Bwenzi la Mulungu mu Zambia.
దైవ స్నేహితుని ప్రార్థనా మందిరము, భారతదేశము, ఏలూరు.
Bwenzi la Mulungu, Malawi.
เพื่อนของพระเจ้าประเทศไทย
সদাপ্রভুর বন্ধু বাংলাদেশ।
Друг Божий Україна. Moninga na Nzambe.
የእግዚአብሔር ወዳጅ ቤተ ክርስቲያን ኢትዮጵያ።
खुदा का दोस्त पाकिस्तान।
Hello, friends of God, from around the world. Again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for making the Friend of God your platform of choice as we continue to grow with this kingdom value teaching. We're doing back here in South Africa what we refer to as our Go Global conference. And what we're going to be doing now is showing you an interview that I did with Edgar Geschwint. And I believe that what he's got to say will not only inspire you, but it will confront you as you make this walk with God and seek God's will for your life. I must tell you, some of you are wondering, Edgar Geschwint who? A gentleman right now who we honor, we respect, 91 years old, a hero of the faith, someone who has plowed himself into the kingdom and has genuinely walked on the front lines as he together with others brought different nationalities together. His story is incredible. But what's more inspiring about his story is how he found God in the midst of this journey. I'm thanking you again for coming and being a part of this, and I'm encouraging you, stay connected. You do not want to miss this. I genuinely believe something is going to be said that can bring great transformation to the journey you're on. Hello, friends of God. And so here we are in our second session with Edgar Geschwint. And if you missed last week, we want to encourage you to make your way into our archives and enjoy the truths that were discussed last week. Sir, on behalf of myself and Liesel again, the Friend of God, thank you so much for affording us the opportunity just to be in conversation with you. And I want to maybe engage immediately off what we were discussing last week regarding your walk with Christ. Now, we spoke about sacrifice and we spoke about trials, and you famously said there that you never saw it as a sacrifice, which was powerful for me. But that said, I wanted to ask you a more directed question regarding trials and how that formed your walk with Christ. And I'm wondering if you could maybe speak to us a little bit about that, about persecutions, trials, challenges, and how it actually just formed your walk with Christ.
Trials are an everyday part of the Christian life. We cannot be Christians and expect to have no trials. It's the trials that form our character and firm our faith. Without trials, faith never really becomes strong and healthy. And so I don't say we must welcome trials, but we must not be amazed at them. We must be happy that God is with us and the Holy Spirit supports us and guides us and comforts us and gives us strength throughout the trial. Trials can be different things. One of the trials that was a long-lasting problem was the lack of money. In those days, people were not very keen on missions. Well, they were keen on missions in China or in India or somewhere else, in Brazil, but not in South Africa, because there was this racistic feeling and anti-black feeling and that sort of thing, and it wasn't very nice. And that in itself was a trial, because in a group of pastors, I would be there as well, but I was disdained, as a matter of fact, because I didn't have a white assembly. Although I did have a white assembly, for 4 years I built up an assembly in Witpoortjie and built the church there. Today that church has been sold and broken down, and a new church built, and it's a big, thriving assembly. But I was disdained at that time. But to get back to the financial problem, there was always a shortage of money. And if it wasn't shortage of money for my family and myself, it was shortage of money for projects. And so, but God had a way of providing in His own way. And you know, what I found out is that God is a jealous God. Mainly people don't like it when I say that, but it sounds as though it's a bad thing. But it's a good thing. God is a jealous God. He doesn't want us to look to other gods or other organizations. For instance, during the period in the beginning of my ministry, when I looked to the AFM headquarters for my sustenance, I became angry with them and bitter with them, because they were not supplying, they couldn't supply. They were of course doing their best, but that didn't concern me. The fact was that I was getting half a salary, and I was looking to them until God spoke to me and said, "Who are you working for?" And that stopped me short. And from that day I decided, I'm not working for the AFM, I'm not working for an organization or for a church or whatever. I'm working for God. And He is big enough to look after me. And that gave me peace and quiet and tranquility most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time. And I was able to relax. I can tell some incidents if there is.
I'd love that. I'd love to hear
time
that,
on
sir.
the thing is.
I'd love
For
that.
instance, we went to live in Edenville because I was responsible for the Free State. We went to live in Edenville because it was a small town and houses were for hire for almost nothing. There wasn't a demand for hiring houses. So we hired a house there, and we went to live there. It was cheap. But I still had to travel. I still had to go and visit churches and so on, and people, and have teaching sessions and that sort of thing. And one week when I came back on the Friday afternoon from a teaching session like that, Bessie said to me, "There's no food in the house." So we had a look. There's no food. There's a bit of sugar and salt and that sort of thing, but there's nothing, there's nothing for a meal at all. In those days, the post used to come by railway bus from Heerningspruit. They would pick it up there and they would bring it to Edenville, to the post office there, and the postmaster would sort it out, and you go to the counter and you say, "Is there post for me?" They didn't have post boxes even. And okay, So we walked down to the post office where the bus should be, and when we got to the corner there was the bus already. So we went to the post office and asked if there's anything for us there. Not that I was expecting anything, because we never told friends and people what our situation was. I believed that was not necessary, that we could trust God. Anyhow, and so there was no post for us. So Bessie then said, what are we going to do? So I thought to myself, let me take her for a long walk with a pram, with Lynette was a baby, with a pram, and take her for a long walk outside into the mealie fields and come back, and then she'll be tired and she'll go to sleep. So, okay, I said to her, let's go for a walk. So we went. And before we got to the corner where our house was, the opposite side of, I felt distinctly I must go back home. So we went around the block, and when we came in sight of our house, there was a bakkie, a Ford truck those days, a Ford truck standing by our house. We didn't know anybody there yet, and I didn't know who they were. So, okay, we went in. We found these people, and we had a chat in our little sitting room. Our sitting room was three or four camping chairs and a folding table. That was the sum total of our furniture. Anyhow, and we chatted a while, and then he said to me, they were people by the name of Skeepers. They were farmers close by there. He said to me, I've got some things in the car for you. And we went out. To make a long story short, they had come from their farm with farm products. All kinds of, some cream and a few bottles of milk and so on. And then they had gone to the cooperation and bought a whole lot of groceries there, tinned stuff and what have you. And they brought the whole lot to us. And we had a lot of very nice food there that evening. They said to us before they left, they said, won't you come and visit with us tonight? So we said, yes, we will. And he directed me how to get there. And I said to Bessie, we better go while it's light, because when it's dark, you can't find a farm. So we went, oh yes, before we went, we had some of the bread they brought, bread and butter, and what have you, and some coffee and all, and then we went. When we got there, we found they had cooked a big meal for us as well. So we ate twice that night. So that's the way God provided.
Yeah, from not eating at all to suddenly eating twice.
Twice.
Again, the story of grace.
Exactly, yes.
Maybe I want to just take this moment to lean into something else about you cultivating faith in your children. Oh. I know I never probed you on this beforehand, but, often when we're going through trials or difficulties, specifically from a ministry point of view, you're wanting to protect your kids. But I think other people also want to protect their kids. And how did you cultivate the faith in your kids' lives?
Well, actually, what all we did was not to burden them with the shortages and the problems of finances and the ministry and so on. We never discussed ministry problems, for instance, in front of the kids.
Incredible.
We kept that out. And the problems of no food and that sort of thing was our own problem, not theirs. And to this day, well, Lynette said a year or two ago, she said she never realized that we were poor. She never felt that way. She always felt we were quite normal family, there's no problem and so on. And that was a compliment to me, because I thought, well, that was the idea, that they shouldn't start stressing and that sort of thing. And of course, they were with us in the churches and in the places where we ministered and went, and they picked up the faith there. I think that's more than anything. We had a family prayers every day and that sort of thing. But, I think that's pretty normal.
And I think what I'm hearing, and possibly also what I'm suggesting to an audience that's watching, is that it's so crucial that you tell your kids in cultivating their faith about the kindness of God, the goodness of God, the provision of God.
Yes.
And that you be very, very, very careful to be in conversation with them when you find yourself at a place where you're lacking the discipline over your tongue or in the faith walk.
Yes, no, that is right.
So regarding souls, I wanted to speak to about souls and about the relevance of reaching people for Jesus Christ. Now, I'll remember a time where it was a very clear objective. We've got to go and reach people for Jesus Christ. Now there's suddenly a generation that's come along that almost wants to say this, and I think there's truth in it, but they're wanting to connect before they correct. They're not necessarily wanting to give a clear instruction for people to come to Jesus. Speak to me about what you believe the importance is about making that invitation, making that contact, and leading people to Christ.
Well, what I believe firmly, and I've seen it really work, is that preaching and teaching the simple gospel of being reborn, of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, Lamb of God, resurrected, and welcoming us and forgiving and carrying our sins in our place. I think all that is the basics of the gospel, which hits hard and which goes home. I once spoke to a group of people in Magubas Kloof. They lived and worked there. They had been there for years. They had no experience of a church at all. When I went there that day, there was a farmer there that invited me, and he had a shed where there were mealie bags. And what he did was he put the mealie bags in rows like this so that they could sit on them and face the front and listen to a sermon or whatever. But they got there and they came in and they sat looking backwards and chatting to each other this way and that way. I had to try and get their attention first before but then when I spoke to them about the truth, the simple truth of Jesus, the question always is, do you begin with creation or do you begin with the cross of Christ? And I believe, don't worry about creation. Come to Jesus and teach the substitutionary death of Christ for your sin. That works. Even as a matter of fact, I've seen great preachers, people like Oral Roberts,
Billy Graham,
yes, and so on. Billy Graham preached here years ago. He preached at Wanderers, and I listened to it on the radio. And when he gave the invitation, I thought to myself, but goodness me, this man has hardly preached anything. He's just told the basics. So is there anybody going to come forward? And to my amazement, people streamed forward for salvation because they had heard the truth. I learned a lesson there. Don't try to be clever. Just be the messenger. That's all, And it works. It works. It really works.
Incredible. So there's another thing that I've been wanting to lead into. Now, in speaking with others, they obviously speak about their reverence for you regarding your title, and that you'll hear people refer to the man of God or someone who was a humble servant, and I celebrate those things. But also engaging with someone like Ron Kinnear, he spoke about your gift of administration, your leadership skills, and I was wondering if you could maybe speak to us from leadership. If I had to wake you up in the middle of the night and say, give me that one leadership lesson, that one trait, that one thing that was your heavy bat, if you'd like, that leadership thing, what were the leadership? And or possibly if there were more, I'd love to hear them as well. But what were the leadership things that you took with you on your journey?
You know, for me, I believe I can't lead people with whom I don't have a relationship. You have to have a connection with people to lead them. Otherwise, it's ruling from above, and it's handing down decrees, you know, and it doesn't work. You need to be in a good relationship with people. You need some connection somehow before you can lead them anywhere, for that matter. Lead them to Christ or whatever, you know. And of course, I had the problem that I was leading black people, colored people, Indian people, and white people. And but those that I was really leading were the black, Indian, and colored people mainly. And I think to respect people, to have deep respect for people, and to not hurt their feelings. But you know, I always said, and I say it again, you can say the most hurtful thing you can say, if you have to say it, if it's true, if it's necessary, you can say the most hurtful thing in a loving and kind and gentle way. You don't have to be the boss. Never. You never have to be the boss. You simply have to gently lead. That's the only way I can put it.
Relationship and respect.
And respect.
Incredible. Incredible. Yeah. I want to ask you a little bit about missions. Now, your life will be defined in the years to come very much from a missional point of view.
It's true.
I want to ask about your call to missions for this generation.
Oh,
if you were to speak to a younger generation, your grandkids that are passionate as well, what would your cry be to them from a missional point of view?
Well, you know, when I think of the reason I became a missionary was because I had a terrible burden. It came from God. That's all I can say. You know, it doesn't sound very interesting, but that was basically why I became a missionary. I didn't want to be a missionary. My dad was a missionary, and I knew the problems they have and so on. But but I had this burden. I was unhappy until I said yes to God. And then doors started to open, things started to come right. And I have a burden to this day for the lost people. I mean, think of it, being lost, being headed for damnation. It's a terrible thing. And millions of people are in that situation. And one can only cry to God, please help us. Send people, send us messengers, send us missionaries and evangelists, preachers, people to become involved in spreading this good news, letting people know.
Pastor Goshen, our time has run thin, and I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Pleasure.
I'm trusting that this next generation will be burdened with your burden for the missional call. Well, there you have it, friends of God. A conversation with a hero of the faith. 91 years serving God. Over 7 years of marriage. Again, discussing the faithfulness of God. I want to plead with you wherever you are. Take the time to listen to this again. Listen to last week's. Make sure that these principles that are taught, spoken about in this conversation, are things that you implement in your journey.
That said, again, I want to take a moment. Friends of God, those that are watching, those that are able to, we're asking you to do two things. Number one, we're asking you to continue to pray. And number two, we're asking you to consider to sow a seed into this missional work that we're involved with. You'll know that we're involved in 10 countries already, have identified 2 more countries, and we're wanting to fulfill the call that God has for this local church, this call to be a friend to the nations. We have a promise that we're bursting from our seams, but it cannot happen without the assistance of people that are generous and obedient to that which God has called them to sow. I'm asking you to consider giving to the Lord's work. At the bottom of our screen, you're again going to see the accounts that you're able to pay into. You're also able to see the WhatsApp number that you're able to give to. And we're pleading with you, wherever you are in the world, get involved in that which the friend of God is wanting to achieve, simply because we're wanting to spread His fame. Nothing but love, family.